So the straight shank hook, I'm using this one with the weed guard for the handle like I said. The straight shank hook, this one's too big, but you can see it. The size that I'm actually trying to use, which you're gonna have a hard time seeing, is a number 10. So it's like this size. So a way smaller little hook right there, but I know you can't see that very well on the camera, so that's why I grabbed that. If you want to use snelled hooks, you can do it. I experimented with that as well, meaning that you buy them with a little tag of line on there. That actually will work surprisingly well. You're gonna be a little bit limited because this stuff is very stiff. So you gotta look at that. The snell is not ideal, but if you wanna use a down eye hook, just run your line through the down eye and then tie the line on the shank of the hook exactly like they do on those snelled hooks, only with much lighter line. And you'll be fine doing that as well. The little barbs on here I've found did not make a gigantic difference holding or not holding the power bait. It comes down to how well you molded it on there in the first place. So what I found with playing with it is playing with it a bunch first to get it warm and get it all stuck together. Then make your shapes and then let it sit in cold water for, I don't know, 10 seconds, 15, 20 seconds, and then start casting it and you'll be better off. But you can make it into almost any shape you want. You know, I can make whatever. It's just a matter of using the bend in the hook to dictate where my bend in my power bait is. So when I bend this flat, it's gonna follow the shank of this hook so that it spins this way. Basically, I'm making a little tiny cigar, like a spoon looking piece, and then I'm flattening it out on one end like that and bending it up 90 degrees using my fingers as kind of a mold. And then I'll take my hook and I'll bring it from the back of the bait in here like this, and then take the shank of that and smash it around on there and get it down onto the shank of the hook. So now I have a piece of power bait. It's nice and straight and looks like that. So when I retrieve that through the water column, it's going to spin round and round and round. This ball swivel right here, I got a little Berkeley ball bearing swivel right there, is gonna let it spin without twisting all my line up. And we'll see if we can catch one. Now, if I'd concentrate on not messing up a hook set, which basically means don't do anything, just keep winding it, we'd be doing pretty good. If you notice, it's got a 90-degree bend, the hook points right here. When I cast this and retrieve it, it's going to spin a whole bunch. And if it doesn't spin how I want it to spin, I can literally remold it slightly a little bit different, and it will change the action of it almost instantaneously. And so the Europeans even have names for their shapes, the ducky and the boot and a few other ones. This one's pretty close to the ducky. I didn't get into all their naming conventions, guys. It doesn't have to be that complicated. Just take your power bait and mold it instead of a ball. If I just give this a ball, it just comes straight through the water column. But if I do this, it's gonna spin and go crazy, have all kinds of action, and get their attention and draw their curiosity. And you can see that thing wobbling back and forth back there, so it's kind of got action like a spoon. And the swivel will keep it. Here comes one a little closer. See if he grabs it. He looked at it. So I might have to make a different shape out of it. But that's the beauty of this, is that I can make another shape out of it. And I can go slow or fast, just like you would. And just like that. So the difference between the European techniques and Americans is, you know, we think of dough baits, power bait dough baits, as a static retrieve or a static presentation, you know, where you just throw it out and you sit it there and you wait for a fish to come to you. But by doing this way, two things happen. Maybe I should burn these guys out a little bit more before I bring them in on this super light rod. But two things happen. First of all, by me retrieving the bait, as you can see, it's hooked in the corner of the mouth, and just like that, that fish is out of there. So I've got a single hook. See, I've just got a single hook. I've got no weight at all, and then I've got a swivel right here. And I'm putting just enough dough bait on here to give me the weight I need to cast it. We can see the fish are right at the surface, so I'm just retrieving the bait through the water column, and by retrieving it, they'll swim up and they'll bite it, but you're not gonna deep hook fish at all. And so I'm not keeping fish today. If we do deep hook one, I'll keep them, but that's not my intention. So by retrieving the bait, two things happen. I'm covering a lot more water, for one. 2, I don't have any chance, really much of a chance of fish gut hooking. And then 3, I can change my shape, my size, my speed, all of those things to help me get more bites, just as I would with any other lure. So it's kind of a hybrid between bait fishing and lure fishing. You guys probably all have one of these. If you ever fished with trout very much, you probably have one of these. That's known as a bubble or a fly in a bubble situation, where there would be a line coming through here. You put water in here. This becomes your casting weight, so you don't have to have extra weight. Line goes through here and you have a fly back here. That would be the classic fly in a bubble. Well, you can do the same thing with my straight shank hook and molded power bait, only now I have the advantage of power bait back there as well, which means if a trout gets in the stream of that, he's going to smell it, hunt it down, and get him, and get a hold of it. And the key is, because the line is tight, when you're retrieving this, it's not sitting static, you're retrieving it. When they come up and bite it, you know it immediately. And they're gonna bite it and turn just like any other fish, and you're gonna hook them right here. And if you watch the footage, every single fish we caught that day, not with no exceptions, every fish was hooked around the outside of the lips or right in the mouth perfectly. No misses, no deep hooks at all. And that's really important to me as a conservation-oriented guy. And look, I'm all for eating some trout. I'll eat some trout, I have no problem with that. But I don't want to eat all the trout, and I certainly don't want to hurt them if I can avoid it. So I can hook them on the mouth, easy, and let them go. All right, guys, so if you notice, we got a bunch of wind chop now. And in our effort to show you all the different ways we can catch them with power bait without deep hooking fish, we tied a bobber with no weight. So I'm casting only the weight of the bobber on the little ultralight. And by doing so, it's very responsive. The hook is right in the tip of his snout. I don't even need pliers to get a hold of it. Ta-da, ta-da, piece of cake right there. So I literally, it's the same rig I had before, guys. I took all the weight off it. It's just, I put the bobber ahead of it on the swivel, above the swivel. So if anything, the weight of the swivel is pulling it down, and the same little straight shank hook right there. And because I have the wind, the bobber will move up and down. You get a classic crappie chop or a walleye chop, depending on where you're from, the bait moving up and down. As soon as I put the bobber back on and threw it out there, we're bit again. It doesn't get any better for a kid. So you really want to get your kid hooked on fishing. Here's why this is better than bait. Kids like to do stuff. They want to cast, they want to throw, they want to look at stuff, they want to move around. They don't want to sit there and stare at the bobber. I get it, I can't even sit there and stare at the bobber. This way they can throw it and retrieve it, and they've got something to do all day while they're doing it. And by the way, you're gonna get more bites because you're covering more water as well. You're not waiting for a fish to smell it and hunt it down. You're retrieving it. And trout are sight feeders, so the different colors make a big difference depending on how you mold them together. The different size, so the action, so their lateral line will pick it up. But at the end of the day, they gotta see it. And when they get up behind, they gotta see it. And then when they get close enough to see it, now they'll smell it, and now they're gonna eat it for sure. So very, very important that you take advantage of all of their senses, and power bait does that. So for a kid who might not have excellent hook setting who might not have a really long attention span, and maybe doesn't want to sit there and wait for a trout to swim by, can now throw and retrieve and catch all kinds of trout. If I want to be able to fish in the wind, I need a better casting weight and maybe a better draw to my situation. So in this footage, you can see I used a spoon. I used a Johnson Sprite spoon, and used it in the same way that you would have a Dodger on your trolling rig, if you're familiar with that. And all that is an attention getter for the fish. So when the wind is blowing and the environment's loud and the light penetration's all strange, that spoon becomes your attractor. And when they get up to your spoon, now they can see the power bait that's trailing along 2 feet behind it, and they'll eat that every time. And it worked so good that I almost felt guilty putting it on TV, but I want you guys to catch fish. So funny, dude. They like that shiny little spoon. They look at the spoon, and then all of them look and saw the power bait. And once they get in this shallow water in here, I'm noticing they're a little spookier now that the light's up. And first thing this morning, you know, in other words, 30 minutes ago, we could easily pick them off right here in front of us. And now they're spooking when they get up against the front of us. So that's the other part of the reason of me trying different stuff, just to show you guys, you know, first of all, there's always more than one way to catch them. And two, we can catch them without gut hooking them. Okay. That guy just wrecked it, I saw him look at the spoon and turn around and he blasted that thing. Yeah. And you guys can see the spoon and the size of the fish. And again, because I'm retrieving this bait, I don't have to worry about gut hook, even though I just caught him on power bait and a little tiny hook. If you look, that hook is right in the corner of his mouth right there. So it'll come right out, right there in the mandible. Perfect little stocker trout. Put him back because we don't want anything to do with him. And there is my rig, guys. I have a Dodger. Effectively, I have a flasher. That spoon's too big for catching any of these fish, but with this little hook back here, a couple feet behind it, and a piece of power bait on there, I've thrown it about 8 times. It's been bit like 5. My hookup ratio hasn't been great just yet, but I'm still fine-tuning my rig. But the point being, even if it got windy or something today, I can still fish my power bait, still get these stockers to bite one after the other without a tremendous amount of effort. And I can do it in the wind or I can do it in the calm, and I'm not gonna gut hook any of the fish. All these fish can very easily be released with a little hook in the corner of their mouth. Now I've subsequently done it since by taking and putting power bait on the back of the hit stick, and the reason is this. I'm now traveling with 2 total rigs. I have 1 hit stick and I have 1 jar of power bait, and I can do whatever I need as far as all that goes. So pretty cool way to do it, but just drop a short leader off the back, put your hook right here. Now you have a casting weight and you have an attractor. And when they get up behind this thing, if they don't grab that, they're gonna grab that for sure. And so you've got a 2-for-1 deal. Understand you can't do that in some states with this one because it already has 3 hooks. So you need to remove one of the hooks. You have a 3-hook maximum in Colorado. So where you are, you need to check your rig. So that's as complicated as it gets, guys. Take your power bait, mold it, and retrieve it. Take your hit stick, throw it across the river, and retrieve it. Very, very simple. Don't get crazy. Don't outthink it. They're trout. They will bite, I promise.